We have a lot to get to this morning, including this. A panel has ruled that Donald Trump will go on trial for civil fraud on Monday, where his entire New York real estate portfolio could be at stake. You know, Attorney General Letitia James, she probably has hit this former president where it hurts more than any other legal action against him. And you can see it in different mannerisms and reactions among the Trump family. Yesterday, 5 judges decided to lift a temporary stay on the start of the non-jury trial, put in place while they considered challenges by Trump's legal team. The former president's attorneys claimed that some of the charges brought by New York Attorney General Letitia James fell outside the statute of limitations, an argument rejected yesterday. On Tuesday, Judge Arthur Engoron ruled that the former president, his 2 oldest sons, and his company itself were liable of fraud. That means next week's trial will simply be to determine how much they pay, damages in this case, which could include a fine of up to $250 million and the possible seizure of Trump's New York properties. Yesterday, prosecutors informed the judge that they plan to call the former president and his sons to testify, in addition to his daughter Ivanka and former Trump Organization CFO Allen Weisselberg and Trump's ex-attorney Michael Cohen. This is a dramatic turn of events in this week in terms of Trump's legal issues, Joe. And we've been talking all about whether or not Joe Biden needs to fight back and talk about the legal cases against Donald Trump. He made a pretty eloquent speech about democracy and went after the MAGA movement, and we'll talk about that coming up. But at the same time, one could argue that you let the law play out, and boy, did it ever this week.
You know what's so fascinating, Donnie, is everybody's been focused on the criminal cases. Of course, they've been focused on the criminal cases, but, you know, we've known Donald for a very long time. And you just get the sense that a lot of the criminal cases and the possibility of incarceration is still an abstract concept to this guy, right? There's nothing abstract about this. This is his life work. This is a guy coming in from Queens with a huge chip on his shoulder, him doing everything he can to build a Manhattan real estate empire. And the last few days, especially with the appeal being rejected yesterday, show him that very soon that New York empire is going to be shut down if things continue in this direction. And he may even be booted from his Wall Street location, from Trump Tower.
It's being monitored.
From his Westchester. It's being monitored. There are a lot of ways this could turn out, but it looks actually like this civil case may be what's hitting them the hardest right now.
That's a great point. And despite him being president of the United States, everything has always been about money for Donald.
Right.
Still comes back.
And we always say that when people say, why is he doing it? Why is he doing it? We always say, follow the money. It's always about running for president, everything. Yeah, he likes the attention, but the attention he thinks he can use to generate money.
The real reason he ran for president was to just get publicity for his business. And look, this hits him in the gut, and there's a very good chance he is going to have to divest himself of his properties. And, you know, he is a man, and his buildings and his tall buildings and his big buildings and everything is about size.
I mean, it means so much to him that in a very sick moment, of many sick moments, on September 11th, 2001, you know, as he was watching the Twin Towers go down, he goes, now I have the tallest building on Wall Street. It's a lie. But again, that shows you in his fevered brain how much those buildings mean to him.
You know, there are two things that always meant things to him: the money and the stature with people like the people around this table, in the media and people in New York City and people in L.A. and celebrities. And he's lost both. The money has shrunk, and of course his standing with outside of Tupelo, Mississippi, is in a different place. He could not walk into a restaurant in New York City now. So kind of both of those flanks have been taken away, and I think your point is really well taken. Yes, to a lot of people, going to jail would probably be the scariest specter. But to him, the thing that is really probably sitting with him right now is his big, tall, long buildings maybe going away.
Yeah. Rev, you've known him for a very long time. Would you agree?
Absolutely agree. I think the criminal indictments are something that he can spar with and he feels he may get away with. But I think that the civil case is an existential threat to him. This is who he is.
His family.
And his whole and his desire to show his dad, who's gone, that I told you I could be somebody. This takes away any inkling of him proving to dad that he could rise up. I was thinking just yesterday, riding down Fifth Avenue, I have one grandchild, 4-year-old grandson, Marcus Al. How one day I'll be riding down Fifth Avenue with my grandson saying, you know, that building used to be called Trump Towers, and telling the story. That is the thing that Donald Trump is scared about. He will be removed from the memory of the next generation because there'll be nothing called Trump if this civil case goes forward.
Through 90% of the
I was going to say it's already happened even in our time. I used to, when I lived up in Connecticut, New Canaan, I'd go up the West Side Highway. And as I left, you'd see 7, 8 buildings in a row, huge buildings, Trump, 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 Trump. And there would be people that would pay a lot of money to slap his name on the side of the building. Coming in the city in 17 and 18, one at a time, they were taken down. They were taken down up and down the highway. Now they're talking about actually taking Trump Tower and other towers away from him. And by the way, some idiot said, "Oh, this happens in Stalinist nations." No, this actually happens in nations where there's rule of law. In Stalinist nations, you say this is a Stalinist nation, and they take you out back and they shoot you. Here, we have a rule of law, and everybody. Let's just, for people that aren't from Manhattan, that haven't lived in Manhattan, everybody for years have known that Donald Trump has lied about his net worth, has lied about his buildings, has lied on his loans. This is no shock to anybody. If this is a Stalinist nation, then Stalin has been deaf, dumb, and blind for like 40 years, because this is not a surprise. You know, when he was running in 2016, I'd say, what do you think about Trump? Don't do business with him. He lies, he cheats, he doesn't pay his bills. You hear that from everybody. And also, he exaggerates how much he's worth. You can't trust this guy in any business deal.
Yeah, this is the Trump that's always been.
Right.
When he was just celebrity real estate developer before he got into politics. I told the story the other day about how he just simply renumbered the floors in Trump Tower just to claim that it could be taller than any other building nearby. So this is who he's always been, but now he suffers some consequences. And his business empire has already shrunk. To your point, his name has been stripped off of buildings throughout the city. He still has a number of golf courses, but he stands risk of losing those, including a few here in New York State. And then Trump Tower was his pride and joy. That was his signature building. That was his home for decades. And yes, he is
Which
no
is
longer
beat up now, by the way.
Yes, and he is no longer in New York.
Right.
He only spends a few nights a year in Trump Tower. He lives at Mar-a-Lago. He lives at Bedminster. But the city has always been such a part of his identity, and we forget it now. But his first campaign was about being America's CEO, being a businessman. That is long since dissipated, and now this. So much of what he has done is still about making that money, driving that attention. And now a huge part of it's going to be gone. He's going to have to appear next week and stand trial. Likely to take the fifth, but he'll have to appear.